And here we go. We're live. We're live, everybody. Welcome to the Hope Seventh-day Adventist TV live stream Bible study, your Thursday evening Bible study. And yes, guys, we're coming to you a tad bit earlier than usual. We switched the times up a little bit on you, but we know that you guys are flexible, and we thank you for your flexibility. We thank you for bearing long and near and dear with us. So tonight, we start at 7:34, actually, 7:34 Eastern Standard Time. And I have a bunch of guests here with me on this Zoom, and they're coming to us from the ministry, which is called Country Living. What Now? Okay, and that's with Sister Kareen. And I don't know if Sister Kareen, I wanted to come on so that I can introduce her really quick. We're hosting her, and we're hosting all of her participants tonight. We're also, hi, Sister Kareen. How are you?
Hi there, how are you? I'm
Doing-
so happy that you're hosting us tonight. And it's Country Living Now What? It's Country Living Now What? And we're so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Sister Kareen. And we're also here with our presenter for tonight, who is Brother Moses. And Brother Moses just ran away from his camera. Oh, he's back. Awesome. Glad to see you, Brother Moses.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me to host you guys and to host this presentation tonight and to take it live to all of our viewing members who will be viewing either tonight or sometime in the future from the Hope Seventh-day Adventist TV website, Facebook, YouTube as well. So guys, really quick before we begin, I'm just going to pray. Now that we are on, we're just going to pray with our viewing audience. And friends out there, we want to remind you guys, we're talking tonight about country living. That's right, you heard it. Tonight we're talking about country living. And
Somebody
Okay.
asked, would you want to turn off the entry bell?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, yeah. So guess what, guys? I don't even know where the entry bell was because I've never had to host so many people on a Zoom before, but we okay. We be fine. So really quick, Brother Moses, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and your ministry?
Well, I'm more or less a farmer. I was always a farmer. I was born and raised Amish. And we farmed and we gardened and we stored food, not necessarily to let's say for a time of trouble. It was just our daily, our yearly, in the spring, we planted our garden. As the garden crops came in, we put in fruit jars, store them up. And of course, there were certain things that we also had to buy. And we needed to go to the store for some items. But for the most part, we were very dependent on sorry, I'm just bringing in my PowerPoint, so you can still see me, I believe, but
Okay, I could see you. I could definitely see you.
yeah, good. So my son was still oh, come on. Sorry. Anyway, we that was just our life. We didn't know anything different.
Right.
And that's the way we lived every year.
Absolutely.
And so of course, I grew up in a fairly large family, and there was like 11 siblings, no, not 10 siblings. There was 11 of us children, our parents, and we, you might find it hard to believe, but we probably didn't spend more than $1,000 a year for food.
So, Brother Moses, I have a quick question. Tell us where were you raised? Where you experienced farming as your lifestyle? Where were you raised?
That was in I was born in kind of north central Missouri state, It's a Amish community called Clark, Missouri. We're kind of between Mexico and Columbia, Missouri there, close to Moberly. That's where I was born. At age 13, my parents moved to Northeast Iowa, and we grew up there. And I got married there, and then we moved to Wisconsin, and we lived there for 7 years, and then we moved to came out Washington, Western states. And so I've been in a number of different places. Missouri was very hot. I remember that. I was still young, but ever since that, we've always been in the northern states. And at night it gets cool. You don't sweat when you go to bed. We don't need AC.
Awesome. And so what made you think it was important for you to share that experience that you garnered in your earlier years as a farmer? What made you think it was important to come onto a platform like this to share this information?
Well, it all started last summer in August. Sister Gwen Shorter, I don't know how many of you know her. Sister Gwen Shorter asked me to share how to live without electricity because she knew me well and she knows our family, and she knew that we grew up without electricity and we grew up with a simple lifestyle. So she asked me if I could share there. Well, I did. And then there was a brother there from Arizona. And so we went down there. He asked me if I could come down there at his camp meeting and share there, which I did. And from there, people are starting to call me from here and there and everywhere. And I don't know that, I'm just gonna be honest.
Yes.
I don't feel all that comfortable doing this. Let's just put it that way. I don't feel like, but I believe that the Lord has called me to share what I know, my experience. Therefore, I'm willing to do it because as I'm sharing and I'm listening to the people, the comments and the questions that come in, I'm very concerned for our people. I really am.
Right.
And I'm afraid if I don't share what I know, maybe their blood could be on my hands, and I don't want that. So because of that, I allow the Lord to use me to share.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us, Brother Moses, because believe it or not, there are many of us who are in ministry today, and it's not because we have any kind of comfort level with the platforms, the electronic platforms that we're using. It is simply because the Lord has called us, and we believe that if he's called us, therefore he's prepared us in some form or the other to do this work in this time using the tools he's provided for us. So therefore we go brave, we're not afraid of we go brave.
We have to. Yeah, my first time in Zoom was about a month ago, ever.
Oh yeah. Welcome to Zoom. No, welcome to YouTube and welcome to Facebook. Okay.
Yeah. So my sons are way more computer literate than I am, but in fact, my son is out there. You may see Eli, and he's my son, and he will be sharing texts as people ask questions, and he'll remind me that he'll give me hints here and there to talk about this, that, and the other. So we kind of work together, my son and I. So.
Yes. Exactly. Okay, so Brother Moses, without much ado, everyone is gathered here and we're eagerly awaiting your presentation on country living, living off grid, how to prepare to live off grid and how to actually function off grid.
Yes.
So we're allowing you to go right ahead and share your screen and begin your presentation.
Okay, yes. Those of you who are new, I don't know how many were on the last 2 episodes that I did, or parts that I did. We covered the wood cook stove, the wood stove. We covered water situations, bathroom situations, and many different things we have already touched and covered. So tonight we're going to go a little bit into lighting. How do you have lights? And I've been asked what kind of tools do we need? And I know that a lot of you who are in the country already have figured all this out, but I think it's good to just talk about it and encourage one another. I just want to tell you right now, we're out here in Washington, here north of Spokane, up in the mountains here, foothills of the mountains. Right now, we have about 3 feet of snow on the level. And it is actually unusually, we haven't had this kind of snow this early. There's one other year that we had 4 feet. And if it snows next week, like they say, we'll be over 4 feet by the end of next week. And this is not even going to be Christmas. So we're being challenged. And there are some people out here that have come in from the city, especially from California, New Mexico, and places where it's warmer. And these people are really having a hard time. And I'm concerned for these people that are out here trying to figure out how are we going to make it. I mean, this snow is something they weren't used to and not expected. And so it's a very challenging thing. And I just try to encourage people, you know, God has brought you guys out here in the country, all of us, to perfect our character. Are we going to get upset? Are we going to get angry at God for allowing this snow to come? Or are we just going to sit still and say, God will help us through? So anyway, I'm going to share my screen now, and then we'll go from there. So come on. What's going on? Anyway, come on, what's going on? So this is part 3, not if, but when. Everything comes to a halt as we're used to. And this is, every time I start out like this, okay, the power is on right now. We all have power. But in a 15 minutes or so, I want you to, in your mind, think. I want you in your mind to start imagining. About 15 minutes, the power is going to go off. And we don't know how long it's going to stay off. An hour? Well, what if it doesn't come back on in an hour? A day? Well, what if it doesn't come back on in a day? A week? What if it doesn't come back on in a week? Maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 6 months. What are you going to do? Have you ever thought about it? I want you guys all to think about it. What are you going to do if something like this were to happen? How are you going to survive? Those in the city are going to be even having harder time than those in the country, because the people in the city are so many of them. And when people get hungry, they will start doing things that they would have imagined they wouldn't. And it can be in the country as well. But where you get a lot of people together and there's no longer food in the store, the gas pumps don't work because there's no power. They might run a generator for a little while till they run out. The hospitals, the sick, I want you to really think about it. This is going to be a very, very serious thing once this comes. I believe it's going to come. I don't question whether it's going to come or not. I just don't know when, and I'm not going to try to put any time on it. We know there's much going on. Our Father in heaven will have to allow this to happen. You know, I want to have a word of prayer before we go any further. Father in heaven, please, I don't want to do this without the Holy Spirit leading my thought and mind. Please just let my mind be clear and help me to speak clearly, and that people may understand, and that we all, including me, can gain a blessing from tonight's time that we spend together. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So anyway, have you ever thought about it? Those of you who might be on medications, that could be very serious. Your medications are going to stop. Do you know, and I know that they have been doing medical missionary classes. You really need to pay attention. You need to understand that your medication will not always be as available as it is now. In fact, here a while back, I was in the pharmacy, and an older gentleman, we have a young lady living with us, which is on medication for various things. She's mentally challenged and so forth. And I was in the line there, and this gentleman comes in. I do not know what the medication is that he wanted, but I overheard the conversation with the pharmacist. The pharmacist told him, we're having a really hard time keeping that in stock. There's just not enough to reach. But if you come back in 2 days, we may have some. We will not be able to fill your full prescription, but we may be able to give you a couple of more days. And she said that this is becoming serious. There's a lot of medications that are becoming hard to get. And she said, I don't know what we're going to do here soon. That was like maybe about a month ago. And so I just want you guys all to know and understand, I believe it's time that if we don't know medical missionary, don't know what to take to help with high blood pressure, diabetes, and things like that, it's maybe time to start learning, because the meds that you're taking may not be available in the near future. I'm not going to put time on it because I have no idea when it's going to be, but it is coming. But God will have to allow this to go down. And the reason I say this is because the children of Israel, back when they were in the Canaan there, as long as they followed God and allowed God to lead them and didn't worship their idols and so forth, whatever it might have been, he blessed them and prospered them. But when they started walking away from him, walking contrary to the commandments and so forth, God had to allow them to go into captivity. I do not believe that we're going to go into physical captivity like they did, but I believe our captivity is going to be what we're used to is going to be taken away from us. Our modernism, our electricity, and everything that hangs and swings around that, our money maybe even. So God will have to do that because most of us are still we are our own God when it comes to work too much. We may pray to ask God, find me a job, but when he finds us a job, we kind of don't need God in it anymore in the equation. And then another thing I say that has to happen is because the Amish people where I come from, they are very, very self-sufficient. They can just, everything goes smoothly and well. Me growing up, we did not put God in our financial part of our living. We thought that is our duty. God is not doesn't need to be in that. I had to learn that the hard way once we moved out here to Washington. So I found out that God wants to be in the midst of everything. So God will have to take away our earthly support. It's going to be cut off from us so that we will have to depend on him. He will not forsake us. He will not leave us. He will always be there for us. But we have come to a point where we really don't need him. And as a country, as America, and many other places, God is not in any of the businesses, or very few of the businesses God has any part in it. They don't even want him there. They don't really care to have Christians in there. So this has to go down so that people no longer can function the way they were. They will then either curse God or they will turn to God. That's exactly what happened with the children of Israel when they went to captivity. They realized that they've lost their freedom. They couldn't do as they pleased. We're doing as we please way too much. We want to go on vacation, we go on vacation. We want to buy a boat, we buy a boat. We want to have an RV to go camping, we go buy an RV. We might offer a slight little prayer to God, help me find the right one. But how much is God involved in all that? Because of that, and then of course the whole other gay agenda and all that that's going on, God cannot bless this country much longer. He's going to have to let it go down. And I believe it's going to go down hard, very hard. So therefore, we need to be ready. We've been counseled over and over and over and over. I've read this quote almost every time as we go into tonight. I didn't put anyone. We're going to read some later. How Sister White told us that we need to be leaving the cities. That's over 100 years ago. I mean, she died in 1915. We're beyond that. And she had, was it 1950? I don't remember, but around there. But anyway, so she had been telling us over and over and over. There's so many quotes that she says, it is now time. Early on, she said, you should leave the large cities to go to the small cities. Finally, towards the very end, she said, it is now time to leave the cities and to go to the country. And the main reason she talks a lot about raising our own food, because there are troublous times coming, hard times coming. So, and then another time she says it's going to be very difficult to buy and sell. So we need to be raising our own food. If she's saying that, then apparently it's serious. It's going to be, something is coming. And we just don't see it yet. I believe I see it coming very quickly. I believe it's very close. I don't know how close or how quick, but there's so much at stage right now with everything that's going on, the COP27 and all that's going on, why did they have to go over to Mount Sinai to write another 10 commandments? Are they mocking God? I'm afraid they are. They're basically claiming that his commandments aren't good enough. So they go back to the same place that God used to give us the 10 commandments. God is not going to be mocked. I want you to understand that. God will not accept mocking. So we're probably in for a difficult time very soon. So anyway, here I'm going to talk a little bit about lighting. So what are you going to do when your power goes off and like it went out now and it's dark and what are you doing? Well, you might have some candles. You may have some kerosene lamps. I grew up with kerosene lamps. That's all we had. Well, I shouldn't say so. We sometimes used the Coleman gas lantern, but not very much. We didn't use many candles. If we used candles, they were more or less just for something different, something fun. But we used these kerosene lamps like you got on the right-hand side and the lantern on the other side. That's what we used to carry out to the barn. That's what we lit up our barn and other outbuildings with as we did our chores. We might have had 4 or 5 of those hanging along when we were milking the cows in the back. We would have those. And of course, when we were done milking, we'd unhook it and carry it into the house and then blow it out. And that's one thing that I want to talk to you about. Very few people know much about kerosene lamps. And some of you may be even using them, but you might not realize how dangerous they can be. Now, in movies, I've watched a few where they made some of the Amish, The Shining and some of those. Now, they always reach over and they turn out the light with that little knob on the side. Don't do that way. You may turn it down a little, but don't turn it out. Just blow in the top. It'll go out easily. And especially the kerosene lantern, there's a little thing which you lift up to light it, lift it up and blow it out. The reason being is when your wick is nice and clean, like that wick, it'll of course be burnt a little bit at the edge. It won't be looking that white. But when your wick is nice and clean, you can turn it out and it'll go out. But as time goes by and you don't clean it like you should, and so that gives a little crust along the edge there. Soot buildup. And what can happen when you turn that down, that little wick that the arrow points to, when you turn that down, that wick may have red coal on it, and there might, on the top edge, it might break off, and the little crust or char, whatever you want to call it, stays on the top edge and stays lit. And you think you haven't turned it enough. You keep turning. All of a sudden, that wick can fall off and drop down into the bowl or the base that the oil is, and it's on fire. There are a few Amish homes that have been burnt down because of that happening. And I once, a long time ago, we were young married, my wife and I. We had a little lamp, and it was my mother's father's, my grandfather's, which had the same name that I was, an inheritance from him. And we used it a lot. And one evening we turned it down because it was smoking. We tried turning it down more, and it's still smoking. And they had built up a kind of hardened crust on the edge of the wick. Well, that wick fell down into the bowl with kerosene, and I immediately, I was the one that did it, and I saw what was happening. It just started smoking. That bottom just immediately just filled up with smoke, and I knew the danger, and I quickly ran out. It was cold, and there was snow on the ground, and I threw it out into the snow. Luckily, it didn't explode, which it could if it has enough time. They can explode, and if they do in your home, you got kerosene all over the place with fire connected to it. So it can be very dangerous. So better just blow in the top and blow it out, much better. Now, one thing about these kerosene lanterns, the barn lanterns, what we call them, we often set them on the floor when we were doing something, and you can accidentally knock them over. And that can also cause a fire because the kerosene will now spill up into the top and they'll go wild and burn down a building or whatever. So be very careful with your kerosene lamps. They work perfect. They work good. Now, every fall, my parents usually went and bought a 5-gallon container full of kerosene that lasts us basically a year plus. Kerosene goes a very, very long way. So you can use kerosene. I like kerosene. It does have a little bit of a smell, and but it gives nice light. Now candles are great too. I didn't put on Crisco, but you can also go on YouTube and look Crisco for candles. They're beautiful. It works great. I mean, lasts for a long time. So there's many different ways that you can light your home. The power's out, you know, it's going to be dark, or you can just go to bed if you want to. And you know, just go to bed early and sleep and wait till daylight and do like the chickens and the birds do. And so the thing of it is, you might say, I got candles, kerosene lamps, and so forth. That is good, but do you know how to use them? And how long will your supply last? A couple of days? How about 90 days or longer? Do you have enough to go that long? That is a good question. You just need to think about it. The power went off and it's off now, and we don't know when it's going to come back on. Maybe it'll come back on, but we'll have a national Sunday law attached to it, and unless you commit, unless you start now honoring the Sunday and disregarding the Sabbath, they won't give you power back. That might be the case. I'm not saying it will be. This is, of course, the chimney. Oh, this is one thing I want to tell you. You can go on Amazon and buy this here. That's what you see in the screen. Amazon sells those. I believe eBay sells them as well in different places, maybe. They're about $10. That fits upon a quart jar, just a regular quart jar. It's designed for that. And this particular one here. So you can quickly just buy a couple of these and have, if you got quart jars, you will need one of these. This will sit on top of there. Otherwise, it will not make any light. It'll just smoke. You cannot get hardly any light out of it. But if you put that on, all of a sudden it changes everything. But never turn this. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question. Okay, so let's say for some of us who may have gotten to the stores too late because we are expecting a crisis with supply and demand. Sometime in the future, we're expecting a crisis of supply and demand of everything, including rubber bands. You know, if we have a crisis with rubber bands, you know it's bad. So imagine for a kerosene lantern like this. So is there a DIY that people can actually do to create a kerosene lamp? Like I know in some countries, there are some countries right now where people actually have to make their own lamps, and they use like bottles, heavy duty bottles. They put the kerosene in, they create a wick out of like old cloth, and they create light like that. Is that something that you would recommend?
Yes. One thing that you do need, you need your kerosene, because kerosene will not be available when everything else goes. So I would highly recommend that you would go buy yourself 2.5 gallons of kerosene or more, and that'll last forever. Now, if you got to have cotton to make a wick. Nylon will not make a wick. Dacron, polyester. But if you have cotton cloth, you can roll it together, and just a little strip of a shirt or something would not make a very good wick. But if you can roll it together, or even better, if you cut it in small strips and braid it, that'll make a nice wick. Now, if you put it in a bottle, you gotta put a button or something there, something to keep, or get a bottle with a metal cap, make a little hole that'll fit through, and then let the wick hang down into the kerosene. Yes, it will smoke a bit, but if you don't have a globe like this, this globe causes it to draw. You can't see it, but that round thing on top with the slot, that tips up. Once you tip it up, that's usually the way you clean the wick. You tip that up, and underneath there's a bunch of little holes. So you set the globe on it, that causes a draft. So that causes that slot on top causes the flame in there to burn brighter and cleaner. So I would recommend that you'd buy some of these. You probably got fruit jars. Buy some of these, and get yourself some kerosene. You may not need it for the next 6 months. You may not need it for the next year. But what if you need it in 2 weeks? What are you going to do? I'm not putting time because I don't know. I absolutely don't know what's going to happen here. But so yes, that
Well,
would be a
sometimes we
very
do have the power that goes off, so it's a good
Yeah.
time to practice using all of these
Yes.
supplies and equipments. We practice. We don't wait for the crisis, then
No.
begin to try learning. Oh, how do I use this lamp?
That's right. You're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up. And if anybody has questions like that, please, because I want you to understand, my son, we've been asked if we would do a website and do tutorials. My son said, Dad, we're not the best people to do tutorials because that is our lifestyle. We will probably miss things that other people are very critical to other people. It's just been our life. I mean, absolutely. It's just, that's what we do. And we're very, very likely going to miss something very important. But that's why I'm stressing so much to be careful with this. This is oil, it's flammable. Be very careful. You can burn down your only structure that you've got. You're living in the country, you have done the right thing. Be so careful with these.
I think like one of the things with these as well, Brother Moses, is that for people who are just beginning to learn how to use a kerosene lamp, they need to begin setting it up outside of the house, outdoors.
Yes.
Maybe you have like a little bench or something, a work table, a workbench, and you can do the lighting of it from outside. You know, you clean it
Yes.
up, you trim the wick,
Yep.
stuff like that. Do it
Yes.
outdoors, and then you bring it into the house.
Yes. Now, one thing you're going to have a problem with is any kind of breeze or wind, it'll just blow it out. So that is going to be a problem. But if you can have a quiet evening or something, go out and practice it, try it. Don't wait till you have to. Then you're going to be in trouble. But again, I want to stress it. Do not turn it so high, the flame, that it creates smoke. Keep it low enough. If you see any wisp of smoke coming off that, this globe here within an hour will be black, and then you can't see no more. So keep it low enough that it does not smoke. And the same way with the kerosene lamp, if you have the one on the left there, do not turn it high enough that it smokes, because it will smoke those chimneys so fast. And it just seems if it starts smoking, it smokes more and more, and it just very quickly they're smoked up that you can't even see it anymore. So yes,
Right.
be very careful. Now there is a lamp, an Aladdin lamp that we used to use, but those are so dangerous. I would recommend that you would not even get an Aladdin lamp. You absolutely have to you cannot leave the room with an Aladdin lamp. They have caused so many fires in the Amish, but yet the people use them all the time because they're very bright. They have the gas lanterns. They have the mantle in them, the very same type of mantle. But what happens with these, they are probably brighter than a gas lamp with a Coleman gas lantern. They're probably slightly brighter if you have them adjusted just correct. But if you're heating with wood and you got that thing lit and your temperature rises as much as 4 degrees, 5 degrees, will cause that light to burn hotter, and then it starts to smoking if you're not there and see it. And then it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. It automatically, it just starts getting hotter and hotter, and it momentums, and until the flame is shooting out of the top of that chimney 3-4 feet. And then of course the chimney may break because of the extreme heat, and those lamps are can be very, very dangerous. They're very nice, they're very bright if you're there to watch them. The temperature drops, the light gets dimmer. I mean, those lanterns are dangerous. Just stay with this style. This is what I would recommend. You're not talking. I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were gonna read my lips. I was practicing my ventriloquy.
Yeah, I don't do that well.
Okay, so one thing that you mentioned, that this is such a second nature thing to you, that some things you kind of overlook. But how important is it for us to remember to not to touch that? I think you call it a globe. To not to touch with your bare hands. while it has been, lighting for a couple minutes because it gets very hot.
You'll burn your hands. You will burn your hands. Blow it out, wait till it cools down, and then take it off. Yes,
Awesome.
it's very, those get very, very hot. You'll burn yourself, just like touching a hot stove. And also another thing that you don't want when these things are hot. Now they make Pyrex, but those are way too expensive. Nobody buys them. If this is hot and you sprinkle cold water against it, it'll shatter right in front of your face. So I think we kind of covered the lighting. I mean, like I say, you can go on YouTube. There's a lot of people out there talking. People all over, non-Adventists, people everywhere, people that don't even believe in God are getting ready for something major. People are out there, they're prepping. You can find so much on YouTube how to make your Crisco lamps and all kinds of things, how to heat water out there, there's so much out there just because the world, the country believes something major is happening for the most part. So anyway, here, how do you communicate when phones don't work? What are you going to do when your cell phone doesn't work anymore? And we're so used to our cell phones, and I'm sure when the cell phones don't work, back in my day, we always sent letters. The Amish did. We didn't have phones. But in the last part 2, I shared with, don't get a horse unless you know well how to use a horse and have stuff put on a horse. Don't bother with a horse. A horse is going to be dead weight for you. They can be dangerous if you don't know how to use them. They can hurt you. So I told people to get a bicycle. Try to get a bicycle to get around if you got to get to your neighbors and so forth, because your car is not going to wear on anymore. You can have the best car sitting there that anybody could have, the most expensive one. Well, you could walk, you could run and use your bicycle, or any other ideas that you might use. How will you survive if your cell phone doesn't work? TikTok and all the rest of the media. How are you gonna survive without that? Okay, I got a question, Candice. What is the first thing you do? What is the first thing you do in the morning?
Well, I do grab my cell phone, but not for the reasons you guys are thinking. It's only because my alarm is set on it.
Yes, so do I. That's the only reason I use. But I don't get on my phone until after my worship time. But
and I do get on for the news. I need to hear what's going on in my local community.
Right.
So I do have the local news app downloaded. But as you're saying, what are we going to do when we do not have access to electronic information?
Yeah, what are we going to do? You know, how many people, the very first thing they do, the phone wakes them up because a notification comes in that either somebody texted or tagged or whatever you want to say. That is the very first thing they do. They go to their phone and see who tried to communicate with you, even before they go to God. I believe we should go to God first. And sometimes, depending what comes in, the message that comes in sets your day either for good or for bad. Right. Now, if you spend time with God first, you could go back and now see what came in, and it would not have the effect because God would have prepared you. So what are you going to do? I just want all of you think about it. That phone is not going to work. What are you going to do with the time that you spent on your phone every day? Whether it's watching YouTube videos. I mean, there's a lot of good out there too. Sermons. How are you going to pass your time? I miss the time that we used to spend as Amish. Our children all got their phones. Guess what? In the evening, everybody gets in. We may have our worship, or before we have our worship, guess where everybody is? I miss those times. Back in the day, we would, as a family, the Amish family, we didn't have that. We'd eat our supper, and Mother would often sit down and read a good story. We read a lot of books about World War II, Leningrad, Stalingrad, and a lot of those. I don't know, my parents just had a lot of interest in that, how the people survived, and how we read about the stories of the Jews being persecuted and how they hid them away. Corrie ten Boom was one we read, and among others. And we would always maybe read for half an hour and then everybody would go to bed. I mean, we went to bed at about 8:30, 8:30, especially in the winters, 8 o'clock usually went to bed. 5 o'clock, everybody was up and ready to go. And we didn't have phones. We communicated face to face with one another, not Facebook.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's crazy. You go now today, and I'm sure you've all seen it, boyfriend and girlfriend may be communicating with each other, but how? On their device, sitting in the same room, sitting side by side sometimes. To me, that's just ridiculous.
Well, I will tell you, Brother Moses, to be honest, I have a 19-year-old and she's in her room and she's studying, and I'm settling down for bed, and she will text me. We will text each other, and she'll be like, Ma, wake me up at 9 o'clock in the morning. So, it's not always like for
Right.
purpose that's not, good.
No, I agree with that. But how would you do if that phone went away? How would you do it then?
We do it the old time way. Which is get up and we go to the room. Like you're saying, there are a lot of skills that we have actually lost because
Yes,
we're taking for granted that the times that we're living in, this information age, this lazy age, we're taking it for granted that life is going to continue as it is right now.
That's right.
having easy access to every convenience, and that's not going to happen. We're going to have to relearn some very important skills that we've lost.
Yes, another thing, how many phone numbers have you memorized?
Exactly.
Back in the day,
I don't even know my desk number.
back in the day, when you had the dial, didn't have the phones like this, the dial phones. That's all you had. The landlines, so to speak. You memorized a lot of phone numbers. So another question: how many of you know how to do math without your phone? Multiplication, division, subtraction, add. How many of you know that? We are becoming, it's a smartphone which is making us dumb.
Pen and paper.
Pen and paper. That's right. That's what we did. All we had, pen and paper. Or you also, in your mind, you could do a lot of math, the small math, not large math, but small math. But yes, we're living in very serious times. We're losing it.
Yeah, I think especially for our children, because some of us, some of the older ones, we have not forgotten those skills. Like
Right.
you're asking about multiplication and stuff like that. And that's like second nature to those of us who actually grew
Right.
up in multiplication tables. But for our kids now who are being exposed at school to depend on an electronic device, we need to really be teaching our kids how to be less dependent on these devices. And by the way, parents, don't depend on the school to tell your kid how to prepare for the future. We need to be telling our children how to prepare for the future because Jesus told us. And so therefore, we got to teach our kids.
Yes, absolutely. Another thing, how was I going to say? Just slipped my mind. Anyway.
You're asking about the multiplication. How many of us know how to do
Yeah.
those?
Yeah.
Or phone numbers.
Oh, well, I guess it wasn't that important. So I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
So how about you doing this instead of so much time on our phones?
Amen.
And when it goes down and our phones don't work, we need to be thinking about our neighbors. We need to be thinking about people around us. Because God has helped us provide for what is coming so that we can help others. Maybe our neighbor has diabetes and doesn't know what to do, is terrified to death. We can come over to our neighbor and start working with them and praying as we use the natural and help them to find God in it. That's one way to share the gospel. And
Right.
also working in the gardens and then foraging for food and so forth. Somebody asked last week, Monday, what kind of tools do we need? Well, you need basically all of these. You need a shovel, you need a fork, you need pruners, you need gloves, you need a hatchet, you need something, a bucket to carry water in, a watering can, a wheelbarrow, rakes, garden rake, a knife, a saw, a hoe. You definitely need all those. And don't be afraid to use them. Well, there's the chainsaw that works. As
What
long as you
about
got-
those
yeah.
very, I was actually going to ask you about that nice piece of equipment up there, that chainsaw. What
Yeah.
about those that are charged electronically that we're spending a lot of money every year getting, but we're not using? We're not going to be using those when we go off grid.
That's right. That's what I was going to say. There are some that they're coming out with the battery powered ones. They're pretty good, actually. If you have a solar system that works and it is a good solar system and so forth, yes, that would work great. But again, I would very highly recommend getting one of those with a yellow handle at the bottom. You can use that and cut wood pretty fast. That's a very high quality brand there. I think that is a Swedish saw. I'm not sure, but the Swedish saws are one of the best ones out there, and very high quality steel, and they last sharp for a very long time. Have you ever thought about it? You're living in the country. You have your wood stove, you have your chimney in, everything works and functions as it should. Well, we're always dependent on that chainsaw on the top to cut our firewood, which we're doing right now as well. And what if that thing won't work? You got your house, you got your stove. What are you going to do about your wood? Of course, we won't be spending much time on our phones anymore. We got more time. What if we got to do it by hand? Like one of these saws down below, or even the crosscut saw, that would be a real challenge. I've often thought about that. Cutting firewood could be a real challenge.
Yeah.
A real challenge.
Wow. It sounds like it's a good time for us to start getting some books that teaches us how to fix, basic machinery and stuff like that. So
Yes.
that should we need those skills, should we be out in the country and something breaks, we could have a book that we could refer to that gives us, basic instruction on how to fix something.
Yes, that I would highly recommend. Get books on how to garden, how to plant seedlings, how to take care of them. They're out there. Right now, you can get them very easily, very readily. But it is very easy for us to it's so easy for us to go on YouTube, and we forget that will not always be there. Yes, YouTube has basically got everything that the books have. But if you have a book, you can go in that book when nothing else works, and you can read and you can figure out. And the thing that I really like about it is get books to learn how to plant your gardens. If you're not a gardener, a lot of you people may not have ever planted a garden. Get books that'll teach you how to plant gardens, how to take care of your garden, your lettuce, whatever, because certain things just need a special touch here and there. And if you know how, it'll do so much better for you. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. We just want to remind everyone we'll be taking questions at the end. So for my friend H, just write your question down so we can present it to Brother Moses at the end of the presentation, okay?
Yeah. We'll be going for another 10 minutes about, then we're going to stop.
Yeah.
And we'll start getting crazy. I'm going to read these several quotes here. Let the children no longer, can't read it.
I can read it for you. Do you want me to read it?
Okay, I can get it. I just had to move that bar.
Okay.
Let children no longer be exposed to the temptation of the cities that are ripe for destruction. So you mean to say that the cities are ready for destruction? Yes, they are. The Lord has sent us warning and counsel to get out of the cities. This was written in 1905. Then let us make no more investments in the cities, brothers and sisters. Stop making investments in the cities. Where should you be making your investments? Country. You're right, brother. Make your investments in the country. Fathers and mothers, how do you regard the souls of your children? How much value are the souls of your children to you? Are you preparing the members of your families for translation into the heavenly courts? Are you preparing them to become members of the royal family, children of the heavenly king? Is that what you want for your children? I hope so. Then she goes on to say, what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? How will ease and comfort, convenience compare with the value of the souls of your children? Well, I'm sure all of you that are living in the country will and have been in the cities previous will say how much can say how much harder it is to live in the country. I've never lived in this city, so I don't know how easy city life would be, but we have people that live around us that came from the city, and they said They had lots of time to go out in the evening after they came home from work, do this, that, have fun, do barbecuing, go camping. Now, since they're out in the country, all that is just, they're busy. They don't have time for that no more. So
And I think it depends on what your taste buds like.
that is true.
So for some of us who have lived in the cities, and we also have had the opportunity to live in the country. I was born and raised in the country, so
Praise the Lord.
a lot of this stuff, I'm very, very familiar with a lot of this stuff. In fact, we created DIY in the country, okay? Because in the country, you do not have access to much stuff, and you have to be creative. You have to be creative about what you're eating, what you're cooking, how you're doing it, how you're setting up your homes, how you're recycling, reducing, reusing, recycling. That's something that wasn't just coined in the last 10 years. That's something that those of us who are familiar with having to live off the land, we have to be creative all the time. So it really depends. And guys, if you have had that experience of living in the country, start resurfacing your skills. Start
Amen.
putting them into practice, teaching them to your kids. How many of us remember the little sewing kits with the little needle and the little thread? And when your shirt gets a little tear in it, you patch that up. You didn't throw it out and go buy a new one. Let's start teaching our kids these very basic skills. Or maybe you may need to know some new skills. So we can buy that little book, go to Walmart. I think it may cost $2 or $3, and it tells you how to sew basic stitches. And let's start getting ourselves familiar with stuff like that, because we would need to be mending. A lot of mending is going to take place when you go out into the country.
Yes, very true. Absolutely. And how many of you know, I mean, you don't have to say anything, but how many of you even know how to sew at all? My wife, she grew up, mostly our ladies did most of the sewing. I did a little bit of sewing. I just did because I liked it. I actually pieced a quilt together once, and I had a lot of tiny pieces, and I always enjoyed sewing. And but we made all our clothes. Everything that you saw on the outside was made, from coats to pants to shirts. That was all made by the mostly the ladies. Now I want you to really pay attention to this next quote. It is a very serious quote, and I want you to look at that date. In March of next year, it'll be 120 years that she said this. I'm not saying that it's going to happen like it did for Noah, but it's still 120 years. That's a very long time. If we place ourselves under objectionable influences, can we expect God to work a miracle to undo the results of our wrong course? No, indeed. Get out of the cities as soon as possible and purchase a little piece of land where you can have a garden, where your children can watch the flowers grow and learn from the lessons of simplicity and purity. Your children, I don't know what you're doing with your children in the cities. I just don't even know how I could raise children in the city. I just honestly don't know, because where would they go? Yes, you could go to the park, but you can't let your children play outside unattended. Here in the country, especially if you have a nice little acreage, you might have a fence around it, but your children can come and go as they pretty much please, especially the little ones. They'll go out in the sandbox. How many of you have a sandbox? How many of you know what a sandbox is?
Right.
I mean, your children will be there for hours playing in the sand with their little toys, their little shovels, their little whatever they have. They find sticks, they find things to entertain themselves. They don't have to be watching those movies for children, those animated movies and stuff, or what's supposed to be good for children, which I do not believe is good for children at all. But it is just what children can do with little things. This is what Psalm said, Psalm 37:25. I have been young and now am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Brother and sister, but what are the righteous? I preached a sermon on Tuesday night about clean hands and a pure heart. What are the righteous? What makes us righteous? That is right doing. That is doing what you know is right. those that God has not forsaken. He sometimes allows them to go to prison and things, but he's still there.
Yeah.
The judgments of God are soon to be poured out upon the earth. Escape for thy life is a warning from the angels of God. Other voices I heard saying, do not become excited. There is no cause for special alarm. Those who are at ease in Zion cry, peace and safety. She's basically saying, leave, escape for life, get out of the cities. While heaven declares that swift destruction is about to come upon the transgressor, the young, the frivolous, the pleasure-loving, consider these warnings as idle tales and turn from them with a jest. Parents are inclined to think their children about right in the matter and all sleep on at ease. Thus it was at the destruction of the old world when Sodom and Gomorrah were consumed by fire. On the night prior to their destruction, the cities of the plain rioted in pleasure. Lot was derided for his fears and warnings. Please, brothers and sisters, let it not us be giving you these warnings as the angels gave the warnings to Lot. Please take it serious. I don't believe that tonight this is going to happen to you, but the day may come. We've been warned. We've been warned.
Right.
But it was these scoffers that perished in the flames. That very night, the day of mercy was forever closed to the wicked, careless inhabitants of Sodom. The same voice that warned Lot to leave Sodom bids us, come out from among them and be ye separate, and touch not the unclean things. Those who obey this warning will find a refuge. Will find a refuge. We know that Lot went out to invite his married children. Did they come out? No, they didn't. The only ones that came out were his two daughters. His wife started, but she even didn't make it. Because Lot procrastinated. Lot didn't go when he should have. How many of us are going to be caught in that same snare, in that same trap? How many of us, of course we haven't, but how many have raised their children in the city, got them married off in the city? How many of them are going to leave the city? They would probably use the same words that were used in Lot's time. As the degree, this is something I want you to really pay attention. There is going to be a time when I know that a lot of pastors said you don't need to leave until Sunday law comes, but I want you to pay close attention to what is said here. As the decree issued by various rulers of Christendom against commandment keepers shall withdraw the protection of the government and abandon them to those who desire their destruction, the people of God will flee from the cities and villages and associate together in companies, dwelling in the most desolate and solitary places. There are some that are going to be able to flee, but where are they going to be? They don't have a farm property to go to. They don't have a garden and so forth. God will take care of them, but it says many will find refuge in the strongholds of the mountains, like the Christians of the Piedmont valleys. They will make the high places of the earth their sanctuaries and will thank God for the munitions of the rock. Isaiah 33:16. But many of all nations and of all classes, high and low, this is what I want you to pay attention, rich, poor, black, and white, will be cast into the most unjust and cruel bondage. Not everybody's going to be able to flee the city. They'll be put in the most unjust and cruel bondage. The beloved of God pass weary days, bound in chains, shut in by prison bars, sentenced to be slain, some apparently left to die of starvation in dark and loathsome dungeons. No human ear is open to hear their moans. No human hand is ready to lend them help. If you stay in the cities, there's a possibility that this could be your lot. One or the other. Continuing on, Job says, will the Lord forget his people in this trying hour? Did he forget faithful Noah when judgments were visited upon the antediluvian world? Did he forget Lot when the fire came down from heaven to consume the cities of the plain? Did he forget Joseph surrounded by idolaters in Egypt? Did he forget Elijah when the oath of Jezebel threatened him with the fate of the prophets of Baal? Did he forget Jeremiah in the dark and dismal pit of his prison house? Did he forget the three worthies in the fiery furnace, or Daniel in the lion's den? Zion said, the Lord hath forsaken me, and my Lord hath forgotten me. Can a woman forget her suckling child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee. Behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Isaiah 49, 14 through 16. The Lord of hosts has said, he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye. God will still be there for you if you fully turn to him. Some of us may have to go to prison because maybe we haven't learned to trust God yet. We may have to go to prison even to preach to those in the prisons.
Right. And I just want to say we do have some questions, guys. We're going to get to your questions. I know we have 2 hands up. We also have a couple questions coming in from YouTube, but we will get to everyone's questions. So, Brother Musa, I know you were having your water, or you stopped sharing. I know you're having your water, so you can finish up your comment.
So no, I'm done. I'm good. I see somebody.
Okay, awesome. So here's a question really quick. And, this is the concern of many, many people. What if I can't afford to buy land in the country at this time? What's your counsel for people who, would really want to move into the countryside? And first of all, before you even go there, and this is an important question for everyone, please define country living. Is country living and suburban living the same?
No.
Please define country living. What kind of acreage? What kind of municipality involvement? What kind of zoning regulations? Stuff like that. Can you define?
That is, yes, very, very true. You need to look into the zoning of the areas that you're considering. There are areas that I would recommend that you would not even move to, even though they might have nice properties there.
So if I live in the suburbs and I may have a tiny bit of acreage and stuff like that, that's not country living.
No, it is not. So that's what she actually says into the small towns. And then later she says it's now time to leave even the small towns. She already said that. So that is behind us. I believe small towns could possibly be better. And yet I don't know how much better, because it depends on the type of a small town, if it's Christian oriented or if it's just a bunch of people living in an area close together. Now, how much acreage? That's a very, very good question. It is nice to have 5 to 10 acres. Of course, I got 80 acres, but I didn't get it for country living or getting out of the cities. I got it because I'm a farmer. A lot of people around here, this area, you cannot subdivide smaller than 5 acres. That's a limit. And in certain areas, it's nothing smaller than 10 acres. They've set that rule in this county that they won't allow you to divide it smaller than that. And then there's also some areas where it's 20 acres. So one thing, when you're looking for property, find out what is legal to build, what is legal, how strict the zoning is. If it's so strict that you can't even have a fire with a wood stove, then you better start looking at another area. Because there are areas like that where you cannot have wood stoves. So look at another area. You don't have to be in that area. Ask God, where is the perfect area? Just like I said on Monday night. I do not know where the perfect area is. I know that a lot of people have moved from California into our area. A lot of people, northeastern Washington, Idaho, and eastern Montana. It's just so many people have come into this area. And I believe it's a fairly decent area. Yes, we get a lot of snow, but again, it's a lot of woods, a lot of pine trees.
Nature's blessings, huh? The snow is nature's blessing, huh?
It actually is. Job writes that the Lord has reserved the snow for the time of trouble. I believe it says something like that, or the time of the end, or time of trouble, I think. And he also says he reserved the hail for something like that as well. But I'm just looking at the comments here. I wasn't able to see them. I didn't have them up. But, I know people have been trying to help one another. They've been answering a lot of the questions. And
that's awesome.
Good.
Guys, thank you so much for doing that. So we do have, I see one hand up. That's Linda's hand.
Go ahead, Linda.
All right. I went on the site to get the well pump.
Yes.
And found out that, see, I already have a well with a casing and everything in it, and it would be difficult to get that pump down past possibly the wires in the casing. So the lady explained to me, she said, if you want a lot of water, then you get that if you're constantly using it. But what I wanted to do was to have a pump on hand. So she recommended for $800, she recommended it's called the Earth Straw. And she said you can pack it and put it to the side. And when you're ready to use it, you get enough water for drinking, for your cooking. And that's basically what I wanted. So I just wanted to share. So because you have to know the depth of your well, where the water starts, level, all that kind of stuff. So the Earth Straw would suit me much better.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did your research. I'm thankful for that. And I hope everybody heard what you said, the Earth Straw. Go look at that. That may be exactly what you need.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Somebody says, by not being able to buy or sell, how are we to get kerosene for the lamps? Yes, that is, you won't, if you don't get it before that gets cut off, then you won't have it. Just like I say, buy 5 gallons or whatever and put it away. Kerosene lasts. It's not like gasoline that gets old. Kerosene lasts for years and years and years.
Right. You just need to store it safely so that you're not setting explosion somewhere.
Yes.
David has his hand up.
Go ahead, David.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm in my 70s, but this year for the first time I really tried a garden. I live in the city, but I know when COVID first came out, there's certain parts of New York I couldn't drive and certain parts of New Jersey I couldn't drive. So I'm really thinking about this in the back of my head. I don't know if there's anybody on this Zoom that I could network with and find out some of the things where I need and how to go about it. I haven't found a country property yet. I have a brother living in Pennsylvania asking to find me some land over there. But I'm really thinking country.
Yes.
My family have no idea. I'm thinking country, but I see what's happened, and I never forgot what happened, and it's just like a wake up call for me. And I got the first chance I get, I'm out. I'm gone. I'm country.
Yeah,
it's
we're gonna
time.
I felt a little proud of myself this year because I grew carrots, beets, turnips, all kinds of stuff, and it came. So I with a little help, I think I'll be all right.
Awesome. That's really great.
That's exciting. I'd like to hear that, brother. Everybody that's been, if they haven't been done it, please start doing it. It is exciting when you are able to raise your own food. It means something to you. It's something that you have done and you gain the reward from it.
Amen.
Right. I think we have a couple more hands up.
Yes.
Zoom user.
Zoom user. Come on.
Zoom user, you may go ahead.
Is that me?
Yeah, Zoom user. Yeah, that's you.
Oh, good night. Good night, everyone. Yeah, Sister White had mentioned I'm sorry. Hello?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, we're hearing you.
We hear you again.
Yeah, someone had asked about what portion of land we should get. But I remember reading, I think it's in early writings, where she cautioned us not to get too much of a land because it will take us too much time away from spending time with God to caring for the land. Also,
Yes.
she advised us that when we move, we should move in company, like-minded individuals.
Yes, I would recommend that.
Move. Yeah, and then also, I live in a country in Simsbury where we have our own septic, and well water. But for those who are building, I'm going to recommend geothermal when you're building, initial building, because what happens, it takes the energy from the earth. Nobody can tamper with that.
Right.
Whereas solar, they can tamper with the sun and everything, but they can't tamper with the well, with the geothermal well, which is something that is very good to have. So I just wanted to share that. And there was something else I forgot. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you, Zoom user.
I'm sorry, Candice. One more thing I remember. There's a book that tells you, like, when you're moving, what to consider, like Mr. Moses was saying about to consider the areas. I know definitely New Jersey is one of them that is off the list that you're to move to, because, for example, New Jersey was one of them that still has the blue laws, like when blue laws on the book enforced, like in some certain towns, everything is closed on Sunday, like bars and certain things are closed on Sunday. They're very adamant about certain things. And also they have a lot of plants, and they caution us to stay away from the plants. So there's a lot of plants in New Jersey. And I know that on the top of the list, one of those places were Idaho. One of the top of the places to move to for country living is Idaho. Or you can go to Jamaica. Jamaica has really nice, good piece of land, and it's very religious. The people are very country living oriented there.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Zoom user. And I'm guessing, Brother Moses, like you said, for people like yourself, for whom country living is second nature, having
Right.
10 acres is a small deal, right?
Yes, right, exactly. But I would say 10 acres, 5 acres is enough for 2 people. You don't need more than 5 acres. If you
Right.
take care of 5 acres, that'll keep you busy. I mean, you don't need a garden for 2 people. You need maybe a garden, maybe about 50 feet long, about 30 feet wide. If you have decent soil, then you take care of that, that'll produce more than you can eat in a year.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so thank you, Zoom user. And now we have 3 more questions, and I know we got to wrap up soon, but we're going to take iPhone, then we're going to take Evelyn, and then we're going to come back to you, H. Okay, so iPhone.
Yes, my question is, hello everyone. My question is, if I don't have the money to have a well dig, but I'm by a river, could I just get a water pump?
So what do you want your water? What do you want your water for? For drinking and using?
Yes.
Well, either that or take a bucket and carry it.
But it needs to be filtered.
Yes.
And with the pump, you could put a UV light on it to
Yes.
filter out the bacteria. But I was
Yes.
just wondering, is that just as good to have?
Yes, that is good. That water, if you filter it, that you could actually build yourself a filter out of. This is what I shared here last Monday, rainwater. You could put a gutters in your house and have a tank where you can put your rainwater in, but you need to filter it. When I was growing up in Missouri, the wells didn't, at the area, a lot of the wells did not have good drinking water, even though they were wells. So our property had an old cistern on it, and the eaves there were gutters on the eaves of the house, and then the downspout went into a filter. It was about 2 feet square and about 3 feet tall. But that's what I remember. I was a 13-year-old. Maybe it wasn't quite that big, but I remember it being about that size. It was a box laid up of bricks. Inside that box, I remember one time my father went in and cleaned out some of it. I remember there was sand, there was gravel, and there was something black. I believe it was charcoal. And so they had you can go online as of yet. You can find out what to put together for your own filters. And you could pour your buckets of water in there and just let it flow down into some storage or something. And that water would be absolutely good if you get the right things together. Also, if you're concerned, boil your water. That'll kill the bacteria as well. But they make many different filters. They got the straws. They have a lot of different filters where you can put water in directly from creeks, from mud holes, and it is safe to drink after it comes through. You can go online and look for water filters. There's thousands of them out there, maybe hundreds of them out there. So yes, there is a lot of water filters, various different ways. Now, you don't need to filter the water if you want to use it to flush your toilet. You don't need to filter the water if you want to put it on the garden and things like that. Only for the drinking and doing dishes and maybe bathing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. And thank you for answering that so well, Brother Moses. Additionally, maybe to reduce the strain on resources, people can actually designate water containers. So let's say
Yes.
you have tanks for drinking, you have tanks for flushing
Yes.
the toilet. Well,
Mhm.
to flush the toilet, I mean, like, ta-da, you don't
Yeah.
need to boil that water. So it's
Yeah,
less,
exactly.
yeah. So it's more cost efficient, it's more time efficient, it's less strain on your already scarce resources at that time, of course. Evelyn, Evelyn?
Evelyn, good evening. It's
Hi.
Evelyn Bohannes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Oh, great information. Thank you. I'm a little bit afraid. I'm 65 and I've never lived in a country. And I don't, I know Sister White says that you should move in pairs, at least 2 or 4.
Mhm.
I don't know of anyone, my family are not Seventh-day Adventists, and they would not be willing to move with me.
Sure.
Do we know any like groups or anybody you can work with, connect with, or any maybe places that already have opened for seniors?
Yes. That's a very good question. A couple of weeks ago, we did a Zoom meeting. I don't think it was on this one a week ago. I think it was the other one I did, where a sister like you came on and says, "Is there anybody else? I don't want to move alone." And quickly another sister popped up, says, "Yes, I would like to find somebody to move with. Could several of us get together?" And that is what I would recommend. I would highly recommend that if somebody has the money that could buy a little bit larger partial acreage and then put a number of cabins on it and help people come out. That is what I would highly recommend. Right now, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got on the 80 acres. There's 4 different families living on our property. Well, one is a single lady, but so I would highly recommend that you would do that. Find somebody that's got property. Hey guys, if you have property and you're not using it or utilizing it, you have 20 acres or more, invite somebody to come out. Let them carry their weight. Don't just, please, if you want to move on somebody's property, please don't burden those people. Carry your own weight. They might need to help you here and there, but at least try to not be a burden on the people. Try to pull your load, and that makes it very, very comfortable. Somebody asked me, Sister Linda B says, get food grade buckets, Berkeley filter, and make your own water filtration. That's in the comments. You can see those. I'm very thankful for all of you that are putting the comments out there, helping us out, because I can simply not answer all the questions that come up. And so just those of you can answer these questions, please do so.
Yeah, I just want to say too, for our friend on YouTube who's asking a question about affordability, not being able to afford to move out into the country.
Yes,
just like Evelyn just answered, and you recommended networking. People need to begin networking. This is what I want to do. Is there anyone who is willing to go in with me? Because sadly, Brother Moses, one of the things within Adventism, when people talk about moving out to the country, not many of us are thinking about our neighbors. There are many of us who can't afford, a ton of acreage, and there are those of us who cannot. But for those of us who can, we're not thinking of others at that time. So I just want to encourage, like you said, for those of us who have it, for those of us who God has blessed, remember, He didn't bless us just so that we could wallow in it, but so we can bless someone else. So you have the acreage, you are aware of people like the ones who cannot afford, the ones who do want to pull their weight, but they truly do not have, the financial resources to get out there. We need to be letting, our churches know, or our groups like this one know, let Sister Karine know, say, hey, Sister Karine, can you put this out there for me? I have, 200 acres. And I'm willing to, subdivide. I'm willing to do something, I have free reign over what I do with this acreage. So let Sister Karine know, okay, guys, and she can put it out there for us. Let's take the question from H. Reynolds, and this is very helpful for our viewers on YouTube and also on Facebook, okay? So H, go ahead with your question.
Okay, good night, good night. I really appreciate the information that has been shared. One of my questions was already answered, But my first question, what about solar? I'm understanding that there might be options cheaper than solar system in terms of, producing energy, electrical energy. Does anyone have any information about that?
Well, on YouTube, there's some things, but I've looked into them. There's very minimal amount of energy that comes out of those, and you might be able to run a light bulb or something like that, but I do not know of anything. If somebody has something better, I would be very happy to hear about it.
Thank you. Even you can let Sister Corrine know as well, so she can put the information out there. Once again, country living, now what? Okay, so she can put the information out there for all of the members, and the members can share with everyone else. Beverly George, your hand is up, honey. What's your question?
Yes, good night. Thanks for the information. I do have a question, for probably anybody out there who might have the similar issue. We recently moved to the country, had a well dug, and we have this foul smell that comes from the well because they went deeper than I believe they should have because of money that they were looking for. But do we need to dig another well? Is there something that we can do? I don't use it to cook or drink, but I do shower with it.
So where are you located?
It's Sulphur in Tennessee.
Tennessee, yeah, so very high sulfur water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tennessee has pockets where it's very hard to get good water. That I do know, and I have been in Tennessee. Our son-in-law actually lives in Tennessee. They have pretty good water there, but there are areas, pockets where it's really hard to get good water. And like you say, the well drillers, you need to be there with them when they're drilling a well.
Yes, we didn't do that.
They don't many times don't stop when they hit the first water, because
that's what happened.
If they go 20 feet, if they go 50 feet and hit water, good water, they barely cover their cost. But if they can go 300 feet, that's where they make money.
That's what happened to us, because we have people who live right along. I mean, we're literally on a water table, and there's another well like 100 feet from where we are, and it's perfect. But they were there watching them, and we wasn't there watching them. And instead of when they hit water at 100, they went down to 230. So we ended up with sulfur.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. I wish people were more honest, but
yeah. So is there anything that that we can do? Anything we can put, any UV, anything at all that we can do, or do we need to just get another well?
I do not know anything about that because I've never had water there. But there may be somebody on the call that could put up a chat or come on or tell us.
Yes, they can use a filter. I use a water softener because my water is hard, but you can use a filter that will filter out the smell from sulfur. Sulfur is not dangerous to you, it just stinks, but you can filter that out. It's still good water, it just needs to be filtered from the foul smell.
Do you know what kind of filter?
I'm not sure. I have someone that has sulfur and they're using a filter, but I don't know what you might have to do a little research and find out who in your area takes care of filtration systems. And shop people don't take you for your money and sell you something you need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Linda. And thank you, H. And this is very useful information to those of us who are not on this platform, but are listening on another electronic platform. Thank you so much. We do not have too much more time for this live stream, but we will stay on to the Zoom to continue with this discussion for those of us who do have a couple more questions. We're going to take David's question right now. David Hutchinson.
Yes, we're talking about just talking about water, but what I understand is that many places like parts of Tennessee in the South, the water situation is very tough, and some of these coal mining areas too, that fracking, the water could be very bad. So you have to have an idea about the hydrology of the area you're in. And you know, I don't know who best for you to get the research from, but you know that's something to keep in mind.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. And once again, those of us who are able to research and get this information, share it with us via Sister
Yes.
Kareem at Country Living Now. What you guys have the invite, it's in the chat, okay? So Country Living Now, please share the information with Sister Kareem so that she can post it so that much more of us can benefit from this information. Okay,
Yes.
one more question. It's going to be our last question for tonight. It's going to be taken from Segan. Segan?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Brother Moses. It's always great to listen to your teaching. My question is for us who are already living in the country, what ways can we make a living just to get by instead of going back to the city to earn money?
Well, if you are in an area where you can raise microgreens or produce, and if you, I mean, I think most areas, the Amish are doing really, really well right now with raising produce. They're making lots of money. Of course, they got lots of children to help with it. Everybody goes out and they plant these large, they call them, they're large gardens, basically. They have a name for them. But anyway, they raise a lot of produce, and they some have fruit stand, vegetable stands right at the end of their driveway, and maybe have one of the children there, or some just have a box there for money. And
Amen.
they do really well. The Amish are doing really well doing that right now. So I want you to know one thing. There are a lot of people that are looking for high quality food, organic food that's organically raised. It doesn't have to be organic certified, but something that they know that is raised locally with no chemicals, and they will pay good prices for it. So if you could do that, that would be one thing to get started. If you live in an area where you need a greenhouse, maybe you do need a greenhouse. But people are looking for good quality food everywhere.
Absolutely. Another thing, Brother Moses, that people are actually looking for is alternate medical therapy. So
Yes.
people who are moving into the country, they're looking for, believe it or not, they're looking for schools for their children. They're looking for little play groups, you know, and these are things that we can actually benefit from, like you're asking, as a source of income. Of course, you're not gonna you know, like hike your prices up like really exorbitant or anything like that. But just keep in mind that where there are people, where there are children, these types of services will be needed, whether in the country or whether in the city. So we just got to be really creative and praying about it. Lady Buttercup, by the way, pray about it as well, you know, and start networking, because there is somebody out there who can afford it and who would be able to want to give you more guidance and to help you to get what you're looking for in regards to moving into the country. And we're just going to take this last one from Brother Oliver. Brother Oliver, it appears you have a comment.
Yes, I have a comment on the last question that she asked about how you can earn while living in the country. There are many things on your property that you don't know that has so much value.
Yes.
Many things that's on your property that is very valuable. One of the things I discovered is the pine cone. The pine cone is one of the most expensive herb out there because it's a superfood. They have so much nutritional benefits in it. If you type in pine cone on YouTube, pine cone price, and you will see how much come up. If you could harvest those stuff that you have on your property and set up something or some ways to sell them, there are a lot of people calling you will be calling you for stuff. So you have to find ways, what talent you can use to do stuff, and you won't be wondering how there's so much you can do. And as Brother Moses rightly said, the Amish, they are doing it, and many other people are doing it, using their different ways, motives of making a living. So there's so much, and we can pray about it and ask God what He wants you to do too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have to say goodnight to our online viewers right now. So we're encouraging everyone who is on the Zoom to stay on, but I'm going to pray and close out our live stream. I'm just going to ask Brother Moses to kindly pray for us. But before I do that, to our online viewers, Join us again next week on the Hope SDA TV live streams available to you on YouTube or on Facebook or on the church's website. And remember, it's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so we're going back to the old time for next week. And guys, I know you guys want to say bye to Brother Moses. He cannot hear you, but I'm going to tell him that you're saying bye to him and thank you. Okay, Brother Moses, please pray for us. To our Zoom users, please stay on the stream.
Yes. Father in heaven, you know my burden on my heart. Lord, every single one that was here tonight, I don't even have a clue how many were here, Father, with all the platforms that are out there, Father, but I ask that you'd be with everyone in a very special way, Lord. I just want to please people start thinking. Your power may go down. Are you ready for that? We don't know when, but it is going to go down. I believe with all my heart. Are you prepared for that? First of all, please, dear God, help the people to be connected with you, and that they would not just be moving because of fear, but because it's you that have told us to go out there through your servants. Lord, please, that they'd hear that voice. The Holy Spirit has been given this message for a long time, that we'd be out of the cities. We shouldn't even be there now. But Lord, as many are still there, Lord, please just help them. Help them to find the right place at the right time, at the right price and everything. You know what they need, Father. I don't. You know what it's going to take to prepare their characters to enter the kingdom of heaven. Father, I want to see everyone in the kingdom of heaven, and someday we may all meet under that tree of life. And remember that time you did that Zoom meeting? Well, I was on that. And I'm here to say, we're together again in heaven. Lord, that's what I want for every single one that was on tonight, and many more, Father. I just ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I'm gonna say good night to YouTube, good night to Facebook, good night to Hope SDA TV website. And friends, please